Question 1. Strategic planning requires a clear understanding of data and its presentation. As an IBM Cognos 10 BI author, you have developed a report showing sales performance. A senior executive reviews the report and expresses dissatisfaction, stating it does not reflect the positive growth they believe the company is experiencing. They suggest adjusting the chart's y-axis scale to start at a lower value, which would visually exaggerate the upward trend, and ask you to make it look better. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Refuse to make any changes to the report, stating that your job is to present data as it is, and that the executive's request is outside your purview. Option B. Immediately adjust the y-axis scale as requested to create a more visually appealing and positive representation of the sales growth. Option C. Proceed with adjusting the y-axis scale and add a disclaimer note at the bottom of the report, indicating that the scale has been adjusted for visual emphasis. Option D. Explain to the executive that altering the chart scale to misrepresent the data would be unethical and could lead to misinformed decisions, and offer to explore alternative, accurate visualizations that might better highlight specific aspects of the sales performance. Correct answer is D. Explain to the executive that altering the chart scale to misrepresent the data would be unethical and could lead to misinformed decisions, and offer to explore alternative, accurate visualizations that might better highlight specific aspects of the sales performance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a business objective and the ethical obligation to maintain data integrity and user trust. The pressure to deliver a report that meets a stakeholder's perceived needs, even if it means manipulating data presentation, can lead to significant ethical and regulatory breaches. Careful judgment is required to navigate this pressure while upholding professional standards. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes transparency, accuracy, and adherence to established reporting guidelines. By clearly communicating the limitations of the data and the potential for misinterpretation, the author upholds their professional integrity and prevents the dissemination of misleading information. This aligns with the ethical principles of honesty and accountability, and implicitly supports regulatory frameworks that demand accurate financial and operational reporting, preventing misrepresentation that could mislead investors or other stakeholders. An incorrect approach that involves altering the data presentation to create a more favorable, albeit inaccurate, impression would constitute a serious ethical failure. This misrepresentation could lead to flawed business decisions based on false premises, damaging the organization's reputation and potentially violating regulations that govern fair and accurate reporting. Another incorrect approach, such as refusing to engage with the stakeholder's request without offering alternative solutions or explanations, demonstrates a lack of professional communication and problem-solving skills, potentially damaging stakeholder relationships. A third incorrect approach, which involves blindly fulfilling the request without considering the implications, directly violates the principle of data integrity and could lead to significant regulatory scrutiny and penalties if the manipulated report is used for decision-making or external disclosure. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the request and its potential implications. This involves critically evaluating the data and the proposed presentation, identifying any discrepancies or potential for misinterpretation. If a conflict arises, the next step is to communicate openly and honestly with the stakeholder, explaining the concerns and offering alternative, accurate reporting methods. Escalation to a supervisor or compliance officer should be considered if the stakeholder insists on an unethical or inaccurate approach. The ultimate goal is to find a solution that is both informative and ethically sound, preserving the integrity of the reporting process. Question 2. Examination of the data shows a significant upward trend in customer churn for a specific product line over the last quarter. A senior sales executive has requested that the report be modified to exclude data from the last month of that quarter, stating that recent improvements have not yet been reflected and that the current presentation is damaging to morale and sales efforts. What is the most appropriate course of action for the BI author? Option A. Politely decline the request, explaining that the report must reflect all available data for the specified period to ensure accuracy and prevent misrepresentation, and offer to create a separate, forward-looking analysis that incorporates the recent improvements once they are quantifiable. Option B. Create a new report that only shows the data from the first 2 months of the quarter and label it Customer Churn Early Quarter Performance. Option C. Modify the report to exclude the last month's data as requested, without any additional commentary, to avoid unnecessary complications. Option D. Present the data as requested, excluding the last month, and include a brief note in the report stating that data from the most recent period has been omitted at the request of management. Correct answer is D. Present the data as requested, excluding the last month, and include a brief note in the report stating that data from the most recent period has been omitted at the request of management. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a stakeholder's request and the principles of data integrity and ethical reporting. The author is tasked with creating a report that, while seemingly innocuous, could lead to misinterpretation and potentially unfair business decisions if the underlying data is not presented transparently. The need for careful judgment arises from the responsibility to produce accurate and unbiased information, even when faced with pressure from influential parties. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and ethical reporting, aligning with the fundamental principles of professional conduct expected of a BI author by seeking clarification and proposing alternative, transparent methods of presentation. The author upholds the credibility of the reports and the organization. This approach ensures that stakeholders receive information that is not only useful, but also accurate and free from misleading implications, thereby preventing potential harm to individuals or the business. This aligns with the ethical obligation to be truthful and avoid deception in professional work. An incorrect approach that involves directly manipulating the data to satisfy the stakeholder's request without proper justification or transparency would be a significant ethical failure. This could lead to misrepresentation of facts, potentially causing financial harm or reputational damage to the organization and its clients. It violates the principle of honesty and could be seen as a form of professional misconduct, as it prioritizes a specific outcome over objective truth. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the request entirely without communication, is also professionally unacceptable. While it avoids direct manipulation, it demonstrates a lack of responsiveness and collaboration. This can lead to strained relationships with stakeholders and may result in the stakeholder seeking information through less reliable channels, ultimately undermining the BI author's role and the organization's data governance. It fails to address the underlying need for information, albeit in a potentially problematic way. A third incorrect approach, which might involve presenting the data as requested but adding a vague disclaimer, is insufficient. Such a disclaimer, if not clearly explaining the nature of the manipulation or the potential for misinterpretation, does not absolve the author of responsibility. It attempts to create a veneer of compliance while still allowing for potential misrepresentation, which is ethically dubious. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the ethical guidelines and professional standards governing data reporting. When faced with a request that raises ethical concerns, the professional should first seek to understand the stakeholder's objective. If the request appears to compromise data integrity or transparency, the next step is to communicate these concerns clearly and professionally. Offering alternative, ethically sound solutions that meet the stakeholder's underlying needs while maintaining data accuracy and integrity is crucial. Documentation of the request, the concerns raised, and the agreed-upon solution is also a vital part of professional practice to ensure accountability and provide a record of the decision-making process. Question 3. Performance analysis shows that several key operational reports in IBM Cognos 10 BI are experiencing significant delays in execution, impacting daily decision-making. As a BI author, what is the most appropriate initial step to address this performance degradation? Option A. Analyze the execution plans of the problematic reports to identify inefficient SQL queries or data retrieval patterns. Option B. Prioritize the development of new, high-visibility reports while deferring the investigation of existing performance issues. Option C. Apply generic performance tuning techniques commonly used in other BI platforms to the Cognos 10 environment. Option D. Immediately adjust global Cognos 10 BI server configuration settings to optimize resource allocation across all services. The correct answer is A. Analyze the execution plans of the problematic reports to identify inefficient SQL queries or data retrieval patterns. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in business intelligence environments where performance bottlenecks can significantly impact user productivity and the perceived value of the BI system. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of performance degradation amidst various potential factors, from inefficient query design to infrastructure limitations. A BI author must balance the need for timely resolution with the imperative to maintain data integrity and adhere to established development and deployment processes. Rushing to implement a fix without proper analysis can introduce new issues or violate organizational policies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven investigation. By analyzing the execution plans of the problematic reports, the BI author can pinpoint inefficient SQL queries or suboptimal data retrieval strategies. This aligns with best professional practice by focusing on the most direct cause of performance issues within the author's control. It also implicitly adheres to principles of good data governance and system optimization, ensuring that reports are not only accurate but also performant, thereby maximizing the return on investment in the BI platform. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of unintended consequences and ensures that any proposed solutions are well-founded. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a broad, system-wide configuration change without specific evidence of its impact on the identified reports is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach bypasses the necessary diagnostic steps, potentially destabilizing the entire BI environment for all users. This violates the principle of responsible system administration and could lead to data access issues or performance degradation elsewhere, which would be a breach of service-level agreements and potentially regulatory compliance if the BI system supports regulated activities. Ignoring the performance issue and focusing solely on new report development is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a disregard for existing system stability and user experience, potentially leading to a decline in trust and adoption of the BI platform. Ethically, it represents a failure to uphold the responsibilities associated with maintaining the integrity and usability of the deployed BI solutions. From a regulatory perspective, if the BI system is used for compliance reporting or decision-making in regulated industries, neglecting performance issues could indirectly impact the ability to meet regulatory deadlines or requirements. Blindly applying performance tuning techniques learned from external sources without understanding their specific applicability to the Cognos 10 BI environment and the organization's data architecture is another failure. This approach risks introducing incompatible optimizations or exacerbating existing problems. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to organizational best practices and potentially vendor-specific guidelines for Cognos 10, which could have implications for support and maintenance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first establishing a clear understanding of the problem through data. This involves utilizing diagnostic tools within the BI platform, such as query analysis and execution plan viewers. The next step is to isolate the cause, prioritizing factors within the BI author's direct influence, such as report design and query logic. Once a root cause is identified, solutions should be developed, tested in a non-production environment, and then deployed following established change management procedures. Collaboration with system administrators or database teams is crucial if the issue appears to extend beyond report design. This structured approach ensures that fixes are effective, efficient, and do not introduce new risks. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of data integrity issues impacting regulatory reporting accuracy within the IBM Cognos 10 BI environment. Which of the following approaches best mitigates this risk while adhering to professional and regulatory standards for data reporting? Option A. Implement automated data validation rules and reconciliation checks directly within the report development process to ensure data accuracy before report generation. Option B. Manually correct data errors as they are discovered during the report generation phase, without investigating the underlying causes. Option C. Focus on expediting report generation to meet deadlines, assuming end users will identify and report any data discrepancies. Option D. Rely on post-report distribution feedback from stakeholders to identify and rectify data inaccuracies. The correct answer is A. Implement automated data validation rules and reconciliation checks directly within the report development process to ensure data accuracy before report generation. Explanation. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of data integrity issues impacting regulatory reporting accuracy within the IBM Cognos 10 BI environment. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the author to balance the immediate need for efficient report generation with the long-term imperative of maintaining compliance and data trustworthiness. The pressure to deliver reports quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise process integrity, creating a conflict between operational demands and regulatory obligations. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement solutions that are both effective and compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the root cause of potential data integrity issues by implementing robust data validation and reconciliation processes within the report development lifecycle. This proactive strategy ensures that data used for reporting is accurate and reliable from the outset, thereby minimizing the risk of errors in regulatory submissions. This aligns with the fundamental ethical and regulatory expectation of producing accurate and verifiable information, particularly in a regulated environment where misrepresentation can have severe consequences. By embedding these checks, the author demonstrates a commitment to data governance and responsible reporting, which are critical for maintaining stakeholder trust and avoiding regulatory penalties. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on accelerating report generation without addressing data integrity would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the accuracy and reliability of the data being presented, which is a direct violation of the principle of due diligence expected in regulatory reporting. Such an approach could lead to the submission of inaccurate information, potentially triggering regulatory scrutiny, fines, or reputational damage. Ethically, it represents a dereliction of duty to ensure the veracity of the information provided to stakeholders and regulatory bodies. Another incorrect approach that involves manually correcting data discrepancies only after they are identified during the reporting phase is also professionally flawed. It attempts to address errors. It is a reactive rather than a proactive measure. This method is inefficient and increases the risk of human error during the manual correction process itself. It fails to establish a sustainable process for ensuring data integrity, leaving the organization vulnerable to recurring issues. This reactive stance can be seen as a failure to implement adequate controls, which is a common failing identified in regulatory audits. A third incorrect approach that relies on end-user feedback to identify data errors after reports have been distributed is fundamentally unsound. This method places an undue burden on the report consumers and signifies a breakdown in the internal quality assurance processes. It is a clear indication that the report author has not adequately validated the data before dissemination. This approach is ethically questionable as it exposes external parties to potentially flawed information and can erode confidence in the organization's reporting capabilities. It also represents a failure to adhere to established best practices for data quality management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment of the reporting process, identifying critical data points and potential failure modes. This should be followed by the design and implementation of preventative controls, such as automated data validation rules and reconciliation checks, integrated into the report development workflow. Regular review and testing of these controls are essential, along with clear documentation of the data sources and transformation logic. When issues arise, a systematic root cause analysis should be performed to prevent recurrence, rather than simply applying a superficial fix. Question 5. Analysis of a situation where a senior executive urgently requests a modification to a critical financial report in IBM Cognos 10 BI, citing an immediate need for the updated figures in an upcoming board meeting scheduled for the next morning. The executive emphasizes that the change is minor and should be straightforward, and requests the report be updated immediately without going through the full testing and deployment cycle to meet the deadline. Option A. Inform the executive that the standard change control process, including thorough testing and scheduled deployment, must be followed, and offer to provide the current report while working on the expedited update for the following day. Option B. Implement the requested change immediately in the production environment, ensuring the executive receives the updated report before the board meeting, and document the expedited change retrospectively. Option C. Create a separate, ad hoc report with the requested modification and provide it to the executive, while continuing with the standard process for updating the main production report. Option D. Make the modification directly in the production environment without any documentation or testing, assuming the executive's assessment of the change's simplicity is accurate. The correct answer is B. Implement the requested change immediately in the production environment, ensuring the executive receives the updated report before the board meeting, and document the expedited change retrospectively. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in business intelligence development, balancing the need for rapid report delivery with the imperative to maintain data integrity and adherence to established development processes. The professional challenge lies in navigating stakeholder pressure for immediate results against the risk of introducing errors or bypassing quality assurance steps that are crucial for reliable reporting. Careful judgment is required to assess the true urgency of the request and to communicate effectively about the trade-offs involved. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured and controlled process for change management. Even under pressure, this aligns with general principles of good governance and operational efficiency, which are implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that emphasize accuracy, reliability, and accountability in financial and operational reporting. By documenting the request, assessing its impact, and following established testing and deployment procedures, the author ensures that any changes are traceable, validated, and less likely to introduce unintended consequences. This methodical approach fosters trust in the reporting system and minimizes the risk of regulatory noncompliance stemming from inaccurate or misleading information. An incorrect approach that bypasses standard testing procedures and directly deploys changes based on a verbal request poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. This failure to follow documented processes can lead to the dissemination of inaccurate data, potentially violating regulations that mandate truthful and accurate financial or operational reporting. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for quality control and a lack of professional diligence, which can erode stakeholder confidence and expose the organization to reputational damage and potential legal ramifications. Another incorrect approach that involves making ad hoc modifications without proper documentation or impact analysis is equally problematic. This lack of traceability makes it impossible to understand the origin of errors if they arise, hindering troubleshooting and auditability. It also creates a shadow IT environment where critical reporting logic is not subject to review or version control, increasing the risk of inconsistencies and non-compliance with internal policies and external regulations. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the established development lifecycle and change control procedures. When faced with urgent requests, professionals should 1. Document the request formally, noting the perceived urgency and business justification. 2. Assess the potential impact of the requested change on existing reports, data integrity, and system performance. 3. Communicate transparently with stakeholders about the feasibility, timeline, and potential risks associated with expediting the change, including any necessary deviations from standard procedures. 4. If expedited deployment is approved, ensure that critical validation steps are still performed, even if in a condensed manner, and that thorough documentation of the expedited process is maintained. 5. Prioritize adherence to established quality assurance and deployment protocols as the default, only deviating when a compelling, documented business case and risk assessment support it. Question 6. The evaluation methodology shows that report generation times for key financial summaries have increased significantly over the past quarter. As an IBM Cognos 10 BI author, you are tasked with optimizing these processes. Which of the following approaches would best align with professional best practices for process optimization in a BI environment? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of existing report specifications, query logic, and data sources for the affected reports, collaborating with business users to understand their current needs and validate potential performance bottlenecks before proposing and testing any changes. Option B. Focus solely on reducing the number of data elements and calculations within the reports to speed up execution, even if this means simplifying the information presented to users. Option C. Manually adjust database query timeouts for the Cognos environment to allow reports to run longer, without investigating the root cause of the performance degradation. Option D. Immediately implement caching strategies for all affected reports without consulting users or analyzing the underlying data structures, assuming that increased cache utilization will resolve the performance issues. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of existing report specifications, query logic, and data sources for the affected reports, collaborating with business users to understand their current needs and validate potential performance bottlenecks before proposing and testing any changes. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the desire for efficiency with the need for robust data governance and user trust within the IBM Cognos 10 BI environment. The core tension lies in optimizing report generation processes without compromising data integrity, security, or the ability of users to understand and rely on the information presented. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process improvements align with established best practices and any relevant, albeit unstated for this exam, internal organizational policies regarding data handling and reporting. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and collaborative method for identifying and implementing process optimizations. By involving stakeholders, conducting thorough analysis of existing processes, and testing changes rigorously, it ensures that improvements are well understood, validated, and have minimal negative impact. This approach fosters transparency and buy-in, which are crucial for the successful adoption of new processes and for maintaining user confidence in the reporting system. It aligns with the professional responsibility of a BI author to deliver accurate, reliable, and efficient reporting solutions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing report execution time without considering the impact on data accuracy or user comprehension would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to reports that are faster but misleading, potentially causing incorrect business decisions. Such an approach would violate the implicit ethical obligation to provide truthful and reliable information. Another incorrect approach, such as unilaterally implementing changes based on personal assumptions about user needs, disregards the collaborative nature of BI development and can lead to solutions that do not meet actual business requirements, undermining the value of the BI system and potentially leading to user frustration and distrust. This demonstrates a failure in professional communication and stakeholder engagement. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the problem or objective, e.g., improving report performance. Second, identify and engage all relevant stakeholders to understand their perspectives and requirements. Third, analyze the current state of the process, identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement. Fourth, brainstorm and evaluate potential solutions, considering their impact on accuracy, usability, security, and performance. Fifth, select the most appropriate solution and develop a detailed implementation plan. Sixth, implement the changes, followed by thorough testing and validation. Finally, monitor the performance of the optimized process and gather feedback for continuous improvement. This iterative and inclusive process ensures that optimizations are effective, sustainable, and aligned with business objectives. Question 7. Compliance review shows that a business unit requires a new set of performance reports urgently. The author has identified several potential data sources across different systems, some of which are not officially sanctioned for reporting. The business unit manager is pressuring the author to deliver the reports within 24 hours, suggesting the author use their discretion to combine data as needed to meet the deadline. What is the most appropriate course of action for the author to ensure both timely delivery and regulatory compliance? Option A. Inform the business unit manager that the request cannot be fulfilled within 24 hours due to the need for data validation and adherence to governance policies, and offer to provide a preliminary, limited report if acceptable. Option B. Create custom data extracts from the most readily available sources without formal validation, assuming the business unit manager's approval is sufficient. Option C. Immediately combine data from all identified sources, prioritizing speed to meet the business unit's urgent request, and address any data integrity or compliance concerns later. Option D. Consult with the data governance team to identify approved data sources and reporting standards, and communicate a realistic timeline for report generation based on these guidelines. The correct answer is D. Consult with the data governance team to identify approved data sources and reporting standards, and communicate a realistic timeline for report generation based on these guidelines. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate needs of business stakeholders for data access with the long-term implications of data governance and security. The pressure to deliver reports quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise data integrity and compliance. The author must navigate competing priorities, ensuring that while reports are useful, they adhere to established standards and regulatory requirements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to established data governance policies and security protocols. By consulting with the data governance team and understanding the approved data sources and reporting standards, the author ensures that the generated reports are accurate, reliable, and compliant with any relevant regulations, e.g., data privacy laws, industry-specific reporting mandates. This proactive engagement prevents potential data breaches, audit failures, and reputational damage. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling and builds trust with all stakeholders. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves bypassing the data governance team and directly accessing and combining data from various disparate sources without proper validation or understanding of their lineage. This poses a significant regulatory risk. If the data is not properly governed, it may not meet the standards required by regulation, leading to inaccurate reporting and potential noncompliance with data privacy laws or financial reporting standards. This approach also increases the risk of data integrity issues and security vulnerabilities. Another incorrect approach is to create custom data extracts without consulting the data governance team or adhering to established data models. This can lead to data silos, inconsistent definitions, and a lack of auditability. From a regulatory perspective, this can result in reports that cannot be independently verified, making it difficult to demonstrate compliance with reporting obligations. It also undermines efforts to maintain a single, authoritative source of truth for data. A further incorrect approach is to prioritize the speed of report generation over data accuracy and validation. While business stakeholders may desire rapid delivery, this haste can lead to the inclusion of erroneous data or the misinterpretation of data points. This directly impacts the reliability of the reports, which can have serious consequences if used for critical business decisions or regulatory submissions. The ethical failure lies in knowingly or negligently providing inaccurate information, which can mislead stakeholders and potentially violate regulatory requirements for accurate reporting. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the business requirement. This is followed by identifying all relevant policies, standards, and regulatory frameworks. Next, they should consult with appropriate subject matter experts, such as data governance teams or compliance officers, to ensure all requirements are met. Finally, they should document their approach and the data sources used, ensuring transparency and auditability. This systematic process mitigates risks and ensures that deliverables are both valuable and compliant. Question 8. Research into the most effective method for a Cognos BI author to ensure that reports developed for a diverse group of stakeholders, ranging from technical analysts to non-technical executives, are both accurate and appropriately tailored to their respective data literacy levels and decision-making needs. Option A. Create a single, highly detailed technical report that includes all available data points, assuming stakeholders will extract the information they need. Option B. Proactively engage with all stakeholder groups to understand their specific reporting requirements, data comprehension levels, and intended use of the information, followed by iterative development and validation. Option C. Prioritize the reporting needs of the most senior executives and deliver reports solely based on their requests, assuming their needs encompass all organizational requirements. Option D. Develop reports based on the author's personal interpretation of what each stakeholder group would find most useful, without direct consultation. The correct answer is B. Proactively engage with all stakeholder groups to understand their specific reporting requirements, data comprehension levels, and intended use of the information, followed by iterative development and validation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for BI authors, balancing the need for timely and relevant reporting with the potential for misinterpretation or misuse of data by stakeholders. The professional challenge lies in understanding the diverse needs and technical proficiencies of different user groups, ensuring that the reports provided are not only accurate but also comprehensible and actionable for each specific audience. The risk of providing overly complex or simplistic reports, or reports that inadvertently reveal sensitive information, requires careful consideration of stakeholder perspectives and the appropriate level of detail and presentation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and collaborative engagement with stakeholders to understand their specific reporting requirements, data literacy levels, and intended use of the information. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that the BI solutions developed are fit for purpose and add genuine value. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach promotes transparency and accountability. By involving stakeholders in the design and validation process, the author ensures that the reports meet their needs without compromising data integrity or security. This also helps to mitigate risks associated with data privacy and compliance, as the intended use and audience are clearly defined. Incorrect approaches analysis. Providing a single, highly technical report to all stakeholders, regardless of their technical background, represents a failure to consider the diverse needs of the audience. This can lead to misinterpretation, underutilization of the data, and frustration, undermining the purpose of BI reporting. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of empathy and professional responsibility to ensure data is accessible and understandable. Developing reports based solely on the author's assumptions about what stakeholders should need, without direct consultation, is also professionally unsound. This approach risks creating reports that are irrelevant, incomplete, or misleading. It bypasses crucial validation steps and can lead to wasted development effort and a failure to meet business objectives. This can also have regulatory implications if the reports are used for decision-making that is then found to be based on flawed or misunderstood data. Focusing exclusively on the most senior stakeholders' requests without considering the needs of operational or analytical teams can lead to a skewed perspective and incomplete insights. While senior management requires high-level summaries, operational teams often need granular data for day-to-day decision-making. Ignoring these diverse needs results in a BI solution that serves only a fraction of the organization, failing to maximize its potential impact and potentially leading to compliance issues if critical operational data is overlooked. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a stakeholder-centric approach. This involves 1. Identifying all relevant stakeholders and understanding their roles and responsibilities. 2. Conducting thorough requirements gathering sessions, using techniques like interviews, workshops, and surveys to understand their specific data needs, reporting frequencies, desired formats, and technical capabilities. 3. Prioritizing requirements based on business impact and feasibility. 4. Developing prototypes or mock-ups and seeking feedback early and often from stakeholders. 5. Validating the final reports with stakeholders to ensure accuracy, clarity, and usability. 6. Establishing clear communication channels for ongoing feedback and support. This iterative and collaborative process ensures that BI solutions are aligned with business objectives, meet user needs, and adhere to ethical and regulatory standards. Question 9. The performance metrics show that report generation times have significantly decreased across the board, yet user adoption rates for the new dashboards remain stagnant, and anecdotal feedback suggests that many users are still relying on older, less efficient methods for obtaining information. Considering this discrepancy, which approach best reflects a professional and effective analysis of the situation? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review that integrates report performance metrics with user adoption data, business impact assessments, and alignment with strategic objectives to understand the root cause of the disconnect. Option B. Disregard the performance metrics and focus exclusively on gathering more qualitative feedback from users to understand their preferences. Option C. Prioritize the creation of a larger volume of new reports, believing that a wider selection will eventually attract more users. Option D. Focus solely on further optimizing report generation speeds, assuming that faster reports will eventually lead to increased user adoption. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review that integrates report performance metrics with user adoption data, business impact assessments, and alignment with strategic objectives to understand the root cause of the disconnect. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in business intelligence where technical performance metrics, while important, be misinterpreted or overemphasized by stakeholders without a full understanding of the underlying business context or the limitations of the technology. The challenge lies in translating raw performance data into actionable insights that align with business objectives, while managing stakeholder expectations and ensuring responsible use of resources. The pressure to demonstrate immediate ROI on BI investments can lead to a focus on superficial metrics, potentially overlooking deeper issues or opportunities. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a holistic review that integrates performance metrics with business impact and user adoption. This represents best professional practice because it acknowledges that BI success is not solely about technical speed, but about delivering business value. By considering user adoption and the alignment of reports with strategic goals, the analysis moves beyond mere technical efficiency to assess the actual effectiveness of the BI solution. This aligns with the principles of responsible data governance and effective business intelligence deployment, ensuring that technology serves business needs and is utilized by the intended audience. It promotes a balanced perspective, preventing overinvestment in technically fast but functionally irrelevant reports, and encourages a focus on user enablement and strategic alignment, which are key indicators of BI success. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing exclusively on report generation speed without considering user adoption or business relevance represents a failure to deliver on the core purpose of business intelligence. This approach is professionally unacceptable as it prioritizes a narrow technical metric over tangible business outcomes. It can lead to the development of technically efficient reports that are never used, wasting resources and failing to provide any business value. This also risks misrepresenting the success of the BI initiative to stakeholders. Prioritizing the number of reports generated, irrespective of their complexity, business impact, or user engagement, is another superficial metric. This approach can incentivize the creation of numerous low-value reports, diluting the impact of the BI system and potentially overwhelming users with irrelevant information. It fails to demonstrate strategic value and can lead to a perception of inefficiency, even if the quantity of output is high. This approach neglects the qualitative aspects of BI, which are crucial for demonstrating ROI and driving informed decision-making. Ignoring performance metrics entirely and solely focusing on user feedback, while seemingly user-centric, is also professionally flawed. User feedback is vital, but without performance data, it's difficult to diagnose underlying technical issues that might be hindering adoption or satisfaction. This approach could lead to addressing symptoms without understanding root causes, potentially leading to inefficient solutions or a failure to identify systemic performance bottlenecks that impact the entire BI environment. It misses an opportunity to proactively identify and resolve technical limitations that could be improved. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that balances technical performance with business value and user engagement. This involves 1. Understanding the business objectives the BI solution is intended to support. 2. Identifying key performance indicators, KPI, that measure both technical efficiency and business impact. 3. Gathering qualitative feedback from users to understand their experience and needs. 4. Analyzing the interplay between these different data points to identify areas for improvement and demonstrate value. This integrated approach ensures that BI initiatives are aligned with strategic goals, technically sound, and effectively utilized by the business. Question 10. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire for direct access to a sensitive customer dataset for ad hoc analysis, bypassing the standard report-building process and existing data access controls. The stakeholder argues this will expedite their decision-making. As an IBM Cognos 10 BI author, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Agree to provide the requested access but delay implementation until a later date without a clear timeline or defined process. Option B. Grant the stakeholder direct access to the sensitive dataset immediately to satisfy their request and maintain a positive working relationship. Option C. Inform the stakeholder that their request cannot be fulfilled due to technical limitations without further explanation. Option D. Explain the current data governance policies and security protocols, detailing the risks of unauthorized access and the importance of adhering to established procedures for data integrity and compliance, and offer to assist in building a compliant report. Correct answer is D. Explain the current data governance policies and security protocols, detailing the risks of unauthorized access and the importance of adhering to established procedures for data integrity and compliance, and offer to assist in building a compliant report. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in business intelligence where a key stakeholder, despite having a vested interest, may not fully grasp the technical nuances or the broader implications of data governance. The challenge lies in balancing the stakeholders' immediate desires with the long-term integrity and security of the data, which is paramount in any regulated environment. The author must navigate potential pressure to bypass established protocols, which could lead to compliance breaches. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves educating the stakeholder on the existing data governance policies and the rationale behind them. This demonstrates professional responsibility by prioritizing data security, privacy, and compliance with relevant regulations, e.g., data protection laws that would be applicable in a U.S. context, such as HIPAA if health data is involved, or SOX for financial data, ensuring data integrity and auditability. By explaining the risks associated with unauthorized access or data misuse, the author upholds ethical standards and reinforces the importance of a controlled data environment. This approach fosters trust and collaboration by showing respect for the stakeholders' input while firmly adhering to established best practices and regulatory mandates. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately grant the requested access without proper vetting. This directly violates data governance policies and potentially regulatory requirements for access control and data segregation. It creates a significant security risk, exposing sensitive information and leading to potential data breaches, which could result in severe penalties, reputational damage, and legal repercussions. This action demonstrates a failure to uphold professional duty of care and compliance. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the stakeholder's request outright without explanation. While it might prevent an immediate breach, it can damage stakeholder relationships and create an adversarial dynamic. It fails to address the underlying need or concern the stakeholder might have, potentially leading them to seek workarounds that are even less compliant. Ethically, it shows a lack of communication and collaboration, which are essential for effective BI implementation. A third incorrect approach is to promise a solution without understanding the full scope or feasibility, or without involving the appropriate governance bodies. This can lead to rushed implementations that compromise security or accuracy, or create a false expectation. It bypasses the necessary due diligence and approval processes mandated by governance frameworks, risking noncompliance and the creation of unreliable or insecure reports. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should adopt a framework that prioritizes understanding the request, assessing its implications against established policies and regulations, communicating transparently with stakeholders, and seeking appropriate approvals. This involves a proactive approach to data governance, where policies are not seen as obstacles but as essential safeguards. When faced with requests that challenge these safeguards, the professional should engage in a dialogue that educates, explains risks, and explores compliant alternatives, always ensuring that decisions align with regulatory obligations and ethical principles. Question 11. Which approach would be most professionally responsible when an IBM Cognos 10 BI author discovers that a requested report, while factually accurate, could be easily misinterpreted by stakeholders to support a potentially detrimental business decision? Option A. Present the data exactly as requested, assuming stakeholders will interpret it correctly and are solely responsible for their decisions. Option B. Subtly adjust the report's formatting or data presentation to steer stakeholders towards a more favorable interpretation, even if not explicitly falsifying data. Option C. Include clear caveats and explanations within the report to highlight potential misinterpretations and provide context for the data. Option D. Refuse to generate the report, citing concerns about potential misuse without offering any alternative or explanation. The correct answer is C. Include clear caveats and explanations within the report to highlight potential misinterpretations and provide context for the data. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the author is tasked with creating a report that, while technically accurate based on the data, could be misinterpreted by stakeholders to support a decision that might not be in the best interest of the organization or its clients. The author must balance the technical requirements of report generation with the ethical implications of how the information will be used. Careful judgment is required to ensure the report is both informative and responsible. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes transparency and context. By proactively identifying potential misinterpretations and providing clear caveats, the author fulfills their professional obligation to present data responsibly. This aligns with ethical guidelines that emphasize accuracy, honesty, and the avoidance of misleading information, even if the data itself is not factually incorrect. In a professional context, the author's role extends beyond mere data presentation to ensuring the data is understood in its proper context, thereby mitigating risks associated with its misuse. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on presenting the raw data without acknowledging potential misinterpretations fails to uphold professional responsibility. This could lead to decisions based on incomplete or misleading insights, potentially causing financial or reputational damage. Ethically, this approach could be seen as negligent, as it does not take reasonable steps to prevent foreseeable harm arising from the report's use. Another incorrect approach that attempts to subtly alter the presentation to favor a particular outcome, even if not overtly falsifying data, is a direct violation of professional integrity and honesty. This constitutes a form of data manipulation and is ethically indefensible. A third incorrect approach that defers all responsibility to the end user, claiming the author's only duty is to generate the report as requested, ignores the professional obligation to anticipate and address potential issues arising from their work. This abdication of responsibility is professionally unsound. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that includes 1. Understanding the request and the data. 2. Identifying potential implications and misinterpretations of the data. 3. Considering the audience and their potential biases or understanding. 4. Evaluating ethical considerations and professional standards. 5. Communicating potential issues proactively and offering solutions or clarifications. 6. Documenting the decision-making process and any communications. Question 12. The review process indicates that a critical IBM Cognos 10BI report, vital for strategic decision-making, has been developed and maintained exclusively by a single, highly experienced author for several years, with minimal formal documentation of the underlying business logic and user requirements. What is the most appropriate next step to ensure the report's continued accuracy, reliability, and maintainability? Option A. Implement a new, complex data visualization technique within the existing report to enhance its aesthetic appeal, without first validating the underlying data or business logic. Option B. Immediately assign a junior report author to shadow the experienced author for a period to facilitate a quick knowledge transfer, without formal documentation of requirements. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive performance tuning exercise on the report to optimize its execution speed, assuming that any issues with accuracy or reliability are primarily performance-related. Option D. Initiate a formal review and validation process involving key business stakeholders and other report designers to document and confirm the report's requirements, logic, and intended use, establishing a shared understanding and a basis for future modifications. The correct answer is D. Initiate a formal review and validation process involving key business stakeholders and other report designers to document and confirm the report's requirements, logic, and intended use, establishing a shared understanding and a basis for future modifications. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential over-reliance on a single, highly experienced report author for critical business intelligence by reports within IBM Cognos 10BI. This scenario is professionally challenging because it creates a single point of failure, limits knowledge transfer, and can lead to inconsistencies or biases if the author's interpretation or understanding of business requirements changes or is not adequately documented. The reliance on one individual also poses a risk to business continuity if that author is unavailable. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it promotes a collaborative and documented decision-making framework for report development. By involving multiple stakeholders, including business users, report designers, and potentially data architects, the process ensures that report requirements are clearly understood, validated, and translated accurately into BI solutions. This aligns with general principles of good governance and risk management in IT, emphasizing transparency, accountability, and shared understanding. In the context of IBM Cognos 10 BI, this translates to ensuring that report specifications are not solely dependent on the implicit knowledge of one author but are explicitly defined and agreed upon, thereby enhancing report accuracy, maintainability, and user trust. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the author's interpretation without formal validation introduces significant regulatory and ethical risks. Specifically, it fails to meet the implicit requirement for due diligence in ensuring the accuracy and reliability of information presented to decision makers. This can lead to decisions based on flawed data, potentially resulting in financial losses or reputational damage. Ethically, it breaches the principle of providing accurate and unbiased information. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness in requirement gathering can lead to reports that do not meet the actual business needs, rendering them ineffective and a waste of resources. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility to deliver value. A third incorrect approach that involves bypassing established change control processes for report modifications introduces risks of unauthorized alterations, data integrity issues, and a lack of auditability, all of which are critical failures in a regulated environment. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes clear, documented, and validated requirements. This involves establishing a process for gathering and confirming business needs, designing reports collaboratively, and implementing robust testing and review cycles. When developing BI reports in IBM Cognos 10 BI, this framework should include 1. Thorough stakeholder engagement to define and agree on report objectives and data sources. 2. A structured approach to translating business requirements into report specifications, potentially using a requirements document or user stories. 3. Peer review of report designs and logic. And 4. User acceptance testing to confirm that the reports meet the defined needs. This systematic approach mitigates risks, ensures alignment with business objectives, and upholds professional standards. Question 13. The analysis reveals that a business unit requires immediate integration of external data into an existing IBM Cognos 10 BI report. This external data source has not undergone any prior data governance review or security vetting. Which of the following actions best upholds professional responsibility and regulatory compliance for an IBM Cognos 10 BI author? Option A. Proceed with integrating the new data source after a brief verbal confirmation from the business unit that the data is trustworthy and necessary. Option B. Initiate a formal impact assessment to evaluate the data source's integrity, security, and compliance implications before proceeding with integration. Option C. Inform the business unit that the request cannot be fulfilled due to the lack of prior data governance review, without exploring any potential solutions. Option D. Immediately integrate the new data source into the report to meet the business unit's urgent request, assuming the data is accurate and secure. The correct answer is D. Immediately integrate the new data source into the report to meet the business unit's urgent request, assuming the data is accurate and secure. Explanation. The analysis reveals a scenario where a business unit within an organization is requesting a significant modification to an existing IBM Cognos 10 BI report. This modification involves integrating data from a new, external source that has not undergone a formal data governance review. The professional challenge lies in balancing the business unit's urgent need for this new data with the organization's responsibility to ensure data integrity, security, and compliance with relevant regulations. A hasty integration without proper due diligence could lead to inaccurate reporting, potential data breaches, and non-compliance with data privacy laws, which are critical considerations for any BI author. The correct approach involves initiating a formal impact assessment process. This process, aligned with best practices in data management and IT governance, requires a thorough evaluation of the proposed change. It necessitates understanding the source of the new data, its quality, its relevance, and the security implications of integrating it into the Cognos environment. This approach represents best professional practice because it upholds the principles of responsible data handling and risk management. By conducting an impact assessment, the BI author ensures that the proposed change is evaluated against established organizational policies and regulatory requirements, such as those pertaining to data privacy and accuracy, before implementation. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of downstream issues and demonstrates a commitment to data governance. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the integration without any formal assessment. This failure to conduct an impact assessment constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Bypasses established data governance protocols, which are often mandated by regulatory frameworks designed to protect sensitive information and ensure the reliability of business intelligence. Such an action could lead to the introduction of inaccurate or compromised data into the reporting system, violating principles of data integrity. Furthermore, if the external data source contains personally identifiable information, PI, or other sensitive data, its unvetted integration could lead to a breach of data privacy regulations, resulting in severe penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to implement the change based solely on the business unit's perceived urgency, without considering the technical feasibility or security implications. This demonstrates a lack of professional judgment and a disregard for the broader organizational risks associated with data management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to change management. This includes 1. Understanding the request and its business justification. 2. Identifying potential risks and impacts, technical, security, regulatory, operational. 3. Consulting relevant stakeholders, including IT security, data governance, and legal/compliance teams. 4. Documenting the assessment findings and proposed mitigation strategies. And 5. Obtaining formal approval before proceeding with any implementation. This systematic process ensures that all critical factors are considered, leading to informed and responsible decisions that align with both business objectives and regulatory obligations. Question 14. The control framework reveals a critical IBM Cognos 10 BI system outage occurred overnight, impacting data extraction and processing for several key financial reports scheduled for release this morning. As the author responsible for these reports, which immediate action best aligns with professional responsibilities and the implicit need for data integrity and timely communication? Option A. Immediately regenerate all affected reports using the available, albeit potentially incomplete, data and issue them with a disclaimer regarding the system outage and potential data limitations. Option B. Proceed with generating and distributing the reports as if the system outage had not occurred, assuming the impact on the data is negligible. Option C. Halt all report generation and dissemination until the system is fully restored and all historical data is verified for absolute accuracy, regardless of the reporting deadline. Option D. Manually re-extract and reprocess all data from source systems to ensure complete accuracy before generating any reports, even if this significantly delays the release beyond the scheduled time. The correct answer is A. Immediately regenerate all affected reports using the available, albeit potentially incomplete, data and issue them with a disclaimer regarding the system outage and potential data limitations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the author must balance the need for timely and accurate reporting with the potential for significant disruption and data integrity issues caused by an unforeseen system failure. The author's responsibility extends beyond simply creating reports. It includes ensuring the underlying processes and data are reliable and that any impact on downstream users is mitigated. The pressure to deliver reports quickly after a system outage requires careful consideration of data validation and the potential for incomplete or inaccurate information to be disseminated. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and user trust. By thoroughly validating the data and understanding the scope of the system failure's impact on the reports, the author ensures that any disseminated information is as accurate and reliable as possible. This aligns with professional ethics and implicit regulatory expectations for data accuracy and transparency. It demonstrates a commitment to quality and responsible reporting, preventing the spread of potentially misleading information that could lead to poor business decisions or regulatory noncompliance if the data were flawed. An incorrect approach that involves immediately regenerating reports without thorough validation fails to uphold professional standards. This could lead to the dissemination of inaccurate or incomplete data, which is a direct ethical failure. If this inaccurate data is used for regulatory filings or critical business decisions, it could also constitute a regulatory failure, depending on the specific reporting requirements. Another incorrect approach, which is to delay reporting indefinitely until all historical data is perfectly reconciled, is also professionally unsound. While data integrity is crucial, an absolute delay without any interim communication or partial reporting can cripple business operations that rely on timely, even if imperfect, information. This demonstrates a lack of practical judgment and an inability to manage risk effectively. A third incorrect approach, which is to report the data as is without acknowledging the system failure, is a severe ethical lapse and potentially a regulatory failure. It misrepresents the data's provenance and reliability, eroding trust and potentially leading to significant consequences if the inaccuracies are discovered. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that involves, first, assessing the immediate impact of the event, the system failure, on data and reporting processes. Second, identifying stakeholders and their information needs, considering the urgency and criticality of the reports. Third, evaluating available data for accuracy and completeness and determining the level of validation required. Fourth, communicating transparently with stakeholders about the situation, the impact, and the expected timeline for resolution or interim reporting. Finally, implementing corrective actions to prevent recurrence and improve future resilience. Question 15. The control framework reveals a critical bug in the data source used for a key performance indicator report that an IBM Cognos 10 BI author is scheduled to deliver by end of day. The bug, if unaddressed, will cause the KPI to be understated by approximately 15%. The author has identified a potential fix, but requires significant testing to ensure it does not introduce new issues. The author is considering their options for proceeding with the report delivery. Option A, delay the report release until the bug is fully resolved and the fix is rigorously tested, communicating the revised timeline and the reason for the delay to stakeholders. Option B, immediately implement the potential fix without further testing to ensure the report is delivered on time with corrected data. Option C, release the report with the known bug, providing a verbal notification to the primary stakeholder about the data discrepancy. Option D, release the report with the known bug, but include a detailed written addendum explaining the discrepancy and its potential impact. The correct answer is C. Release the report with the known bug, providing a verbal notification to the primary stakeholder about the data discrepancy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the author must balance the need for timely reporting with the imperative to ensure the accuracy and integrity of the data presented. The author's role as an IBM Cognos 10 BI author carries a responsibility to produce reports that are not only functional but also reliable, as these reports likely inform critical business decisions. The pressure to deliver a report quickly, especially when a critical bug is identified, can lead to shortcuts that compromise data quality, thereby undermining the trust placed in the BI system and the author. Careful judgment is required to determine the appropriate course of action that mitigates risk without causing undue delay. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and adherence to established change management protocols. By thoroughly investigating the bug, understanding its impact, and implementing a controlled fix with proper testing and documentation, the author ensures that the report remains accurate and trustworthy. This aligns with the implicit ethical obligation of a BI author to provide reliable information and the professional standard of ensuring the quality of work. Furthermore, it respects the established control framework, which is designed to prevent errors and maintain system stability. An incorrect approach that involves releasing the report with the known bug, even with a verbal disclaimer, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This failure stems from knowingly disseminating inaccurate information, which can lead to flawed decision-making by stakeholders. It violates the principle of professional integrity and could have downstream consequences that are difficult to quantify but potentially severe. Such an action bypasses the established control framework and introduces an unacceptable level of risk. Another incorrect approach, which is to delay the report indefinitely without a clear plan for resolution, also presents professional and ethical concerns. While it avoids releasing inaccurate data, it fails to meet the business's need for information and can disrupt operations. It also suggests a lack of proactive problem-solving and communication, which are essential professional skills. The author has a responsibility to find a timely and effective solution, not just to avoid releasing flawed data. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, fully understand the nature and impact of the identified issue. Second, consult the established control framework and any relevant organizational policies regarding bug fixes and report releases. Third, communicate the issue and its potential impact to relevant stakeholders, including management and data owners, to manage expectations and seek guidance. Fourth, develop a clear plan for remediation, including testing and validation, and estimate the time required. Finally, execute the plan diligently, ensuring all steps are documented and that the final deliverable meets quality standards. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, responsible, and aligned with professional and organizational expectations. Question 16. During the evaluation of a critical sales performance report for an upcoming executive strategy meeting, an IBM Cognos 10 BI author discovers a discrepancy in the revenue figures that appears to be caused by a recent change in the underlying data source's aggregation logic. The executive sponsor is pressing for the report to be delivered by the end of the day, stating that a significant investment decision depends on its findings. The author has a preliminary understanding of the issue, but has not had time to fully investigate the impact of the data source change or to revalidate all calculations within the report. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the IBM Cognos 10 BI author? Option A. Inform the executive sponsor that the report cannot be delivered today due to the data issue and suggest postponing the meeting until the report is finalized. Option B. Immediately investigate the data source change, perform necessary revalidations, and communicate the estimated time for a fully accurate report to the executive sponsor, even if it means missing the original deadline. Option C. Manually adjust the revenue figures in the report to align with the executive sponsor's expected outcome, citing the urgency of the decision. Option D. Release the report as is, with a verbal note to the executive sponsor about a potential minor discrepancy, and promise to provide a corrected version later. Correct answer is D. Release the report as is, with a verbal note to the executive sponsor about a potential minor discrepancy, and promise to provide a corrected version later. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge for IBM Cognos BI authors, balancing the need for timely data delivery with the imperative to ensure data accuracy and adherence to established reporting standards. The professional challenge lies in managing stakeholder expectations, particularly when a critical business decision hinges on the report's output, while simultaneously upholding the integrity of the data and the reporting process. This requires careful judgment, clear communication, and a commitment to best practices. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data validation and adherence to established reporting guidelines before releasing a report that will influence business decisions. This aligns with the fundamental principles of professional conduct, which demand accuracy, integrity, and accountability. By performing thorough testing and seeking necessary approvals, the author ensures that the report is not only functional but also reliable and compliant with organizational standards. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of erroneous decision-making based on flawed data, thereby protecting the organization and the author's professional reputation. An incorrect approach that involves releasing the report without full validation and approval would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This failure stems from a disregard for data integrity, which can lead to misinformed business strategies, financial losses, and damage to the organization's credibility. It also violates the implicit trust placed in the BI author to deliver accurate information. Releasing a report with known or suspected inaccuracies, even under pressure, is a breach of professional responsibility. Another incorrect approach, such as making arbitrary changes to the data to fit a desired outcome, is a direct ethical violation. This constitutes data manipulation, undermining the objectivity of the reporting process and potentially leading to fraudulent or misleading conclusions. Such actions erode trust and can have severe legal and professional repercussions. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes a structured approach to report development and delivery. This framework should include 1. Thorough requirements gathering and understanding, 2. Rigorous data validation and testing, 3. Adherence to established reporting standards and governance, 4. Clear and proactive communication with stakeholders regarding progress, potential issues, and timelines, and 5. obtaining necessary approvals before final release. When faced with pressure, professionals should clearly articulate the risks associated with bypassing these steps and advocate for the time needed to ensure accuracy and compliance. Question 17. The efficiency study reveals that several key performance indicator (KPI) reports in IBM Cognos 10 BI are consistently taking longer than expected to generate, impacting the executive team's ability to access critical business metrics in a timely manner. As the Cognos BI author responsible for these reports, what is the most appropriate initial course of action to address this performance degradation? Option A. Immediately request an upgrade of the Cognos server hardware to increase processing capacity. Option B. Analyze the report specifications, query performance, and data source connections for potential bottlenecks within the Cognos environment. Option C. Simplify the reports by removing less frequently used data columns and aggregations to reduce data retrieval. Option D. Escalate the issue to the IT infrastructure team, attributing the delays solely to network or database performance issues. The correct answer is B. Analyze the report specifications, query performance, and data source connections for potential bottlenecks within the Cognos environment. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that a significant portion of the organization's reporting processes within IBM Cognos 10 BI are experiencing delays, impacting timely decision-making. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the author to balance the need for immediate performance improvements with the long-term implications of report design and data integrity, all while adhering to established organizational standards and potentially regulatory requirements for data accuracy and accessibility. Careful judgment is required to identify the root cause of the delays without compromising the reliability or security of the reports. The correct approach involves a systematic review of report specifications, query performance, and data source connections. This focuses on identifying bottlenecks within the Cognos environment itself, such as inefficiently written queries, complex calculations, or suboptimal data model design. By optimizing these elements, the author can improve report generation speed without altering the underlying data or the business logic, thereby maintaining data integrity and compliance with any relevant data governance policies. This represents best professional practice, as it directly addresses the reported inefficiency through technical expertise within the scope of report authoring, minimizing disruption and risk. An incorrect approach would be to simply increase the processing power allocated to the Cognos server without investigating the report design. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to address the root cause of the inefficiency, leading to recurring issues and wasted resources. It also bypasses the opportunity to improve the efficiency of the reports themselves, which is a core responsibility of a BI author. Another incorrect approach would be to reduce the complexity of the reports by removing certain data elements or calculations without consulting stakeholders. This is professionally unacceptable, as it compromises the accuracy and completeness of the information provided to decision makers, potentially leading to flawed business decisions and a breach of trust. It also violates principles of data governance and stakeholder engagement. A third incorrect approach would be to blame external factors, such as network latency or database performance, without conducting a thorough investigation within the Cognos environment. While external factors can contribute, a BI author's primary responsibility is to ensure their reports are as efficient as possible within the given infrastructure. Shifting blame without due diligence is unprofessional and hinders problem resolution. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured troubleshooting methodology. 1. Understand the reported problem thoroughly. 2. Gather relevant data and metrics related to report performance. 3. Isolate potential causes, starting with the most likely within the author's control. 4. Test hypotheses systematically and document findings. 5. Implement solutions that address the root cause while considering impact on data integrity and user needs. 6. Communicate findings and solutions to stakeholders. 7. Monitor performance post-implementation. Question 18. Process analysis reveals that a business unit requires a consolidated financial performance report for a broad audience, including executives and operational managers. The report needs to present key performance indicators, KPI, and underlying transactional details. However, Certain transactional data contains sensitive customer information and proprietary cost breakdowns that should not be visible to all report consumers. The author is tasked with creating this report within IBM Cognos 10 BI, ensuring both comprehensive insights and strict data segregation. Which of the following approaches best balances these competing requirements while adhering to professional data handling principles? Option A. Develop a separate, highly simplified report containing only aggregated KPIs and provide a different, more detailed report with all transactional data to a very limited group of senior executives. Option B. Implement row-level security within Cognos to filter transactional data based on user roles and group memberships, ensuring that only authorized users can view specific sensitive records while presenting aggregated KPIs to all users. Option C. Create a single report that includes all transactional details and KPIs and instruct users verbally not to share sensitive information. Option D. Embed sensitive customer and cost data directly into the report's data source, bypassing Cognos security, and rely on the report's presentation layer to hide certain columns. The correct answer is B. Implement row-level security within Cognos to filter transactional data based on user roles and group memberships, ensuring that only authorized users can view specific sensitive records while presenting aggregated KPIs to all users. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between delivering timely business insights and ensuring the integrity and security of sensitive financial data within the IBM Cognos 10 BI environment. The author must balance the need for rapid report generation with the imperative to adhere to data governance policies and potential regulatory compliance requirements. Even if not explicitly stated as a direct regulatory breach in this context, the principles of data stewardship and access control are paramount. The author's judgment is critical in determining the appropriate level of detail and access granted to different user groups. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing data security and adherence to established access control mechanisms within Cognos. This involves leveraging Cognos's built-in security features, such as row-level security and object-level permissions, to ensure that users only see the data they are authorized to access. This aligns with the general principles of data governance and responsible data handling, which are foundational to maintaining trust and preventing unauthorized disclosure or misuse of information. By implementing granular security, the author upholds the integrity of the data and minimizes the risk of data leakage, even when creating reports for broad consumption. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves creating a single, comprehensive report that exposes all underlying data to all users. This fails to uphold data segregation and access control principles. Ethically, it represents a significant lapse in data stewardship, potentially leading to unauthorized access to sensitive financial information. While not a direct violation of a specific IBM Cognos 10 BI regulation, as the exam jurisdiction is not specified with explicit regulatory bodies, it contravenes the fundamental professional obligation to protect data confidentiality and integrity. Another incorrect approach might be to oversimplify the report to the point where it loses its analytical value, thereby failing to meet the business's needs. While this might appear to be a security measure, it is a failure of professional responsibility to deliver effective business intelligence. The ethical failure here lies in not adequately understanding and fulfilling the user requirements, leading to a report that is technically secure but practically useless. A third incorrect approach could be to bypass Cognos security features and embed sensitive data directly into the report in a way that is difficult to control or audit. This is a direct contravention of best practices for data management within a BI platform. The ethical and professional failure is the deliberate circumvention of established security protocols, creating a significant risk of data exposure and undermining the auditability of data access. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this situation by first thoroughly understanding the data sensitivity and the intended audience for the report. They should then consult existing data governance policies and Cognos security configurations. The decision-making process involves 1. Identifying the specific data elements and their sensitivity levels. 2. Determining the access requirements for different user groups. 3. Leveraging Cognos's security features, e.g., roles, capabilities, row-level security, to implement appropriate restrictions. 4. Designing the report to present information at the appropriate level of detail for each authorized user group. 5. Testing the security implementation rigorously to ensure it functions as intended. 6. Documenting the security measures implemented for auditability. Question 19. Regulatory review indicates a need to enhance the security of financial performance reports distributed to the marketing department within an IBM Cognos 10BI environment. Specifically, the reports contain sensitive revenue and profit margin data that should only be visible to marketing managers and above, while marketing associates should only see aggregated sales figures without specific profit details. The author is tasked with implementing these access restrictions within Cognos 10BI. Option A. Grant all users within the marketing department full access to the financial performance report, assuming they have a legitimate business need to view the data. Option B. Manually create separate versions of the financial report, each tailored with specific data filters for different marketing roles, and distribute them individually. Option C. Implement row-level security within IBM Cognos 10BI, leveraging user roles and potentially data source security to dynamically filter the financial data displayed in the report based on the logged-in user's security profile. Option D. Remove all security restrictions from the financial data source and rely on the marketing department's internal processes to manage data access. The correct answer is C. Implement row-level security within IBM Cognos 10BI, leveraging user roles and potentially data source security to dynamically filter the financial data displayed in the report based on the logged-in user's security profile. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between delivering timely and accurate business intelligence and adhering to data governance and security protocols. The pressure to provide immediate insights for a critical business decision, coupled with the potential for unauthorized access or misuse of sensitive financial data, requires careful judgment. The author must balance the business need for information with the regulatory obligation to protect confidential data and ensure its integrity. The complexity arises from the need to interpret and apply specific IBM Cognos 10BI security configurations within the context of the exam's specified regulatory framework, which likely emphasizes data privacy, access control, and auditability. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging IBM Cognos 10BI's built-in security features, specifically by configuring row-level security based on user roles and the data source's inherent security mechanisms. This aligns with best professional practice because it directly addresses the regulatory requirement for data segregation and access control. By implementing row-level security, the author ensures that users can only access the financial data relevant to their specific business unit or role, thereby preventing unauthorized access to sensitive information. This method is auditable, traceable, and directly supports the principle of least privilege, a cornerstone of data security and regulatory compliance. It demonstrates a proactive understanding of how to implement security controls within the BI tool to meet external mandates. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to grant broad access to the financial report to all users in the marketing department, regardless of their specific roles or need to know. This fails to meet regulatory requirements for data privacy and access control. It creates a significant risk of unauthorized access to sensitive financial data, potentially leading to data breaches, insider trading concerns, or reputational damage, all of which would be violations of data protection regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to manually filter the data within the report for each user before distribution. This is inefficient, prone to human error, and lacks auditability. It does not provide a sustainable or secure solution and would likely violate regulations requiring robust access controls and audit trails. The lack of automated enforcement means that security is dependent on manual processes, which are inherently less reliable and compliant. A third incorrect approach would be to disable all security settings on the financial data source to simplify report creation. This is a severe regulatory and ethical failure. It completely disregards data protection laws and best practices, exposing highly sensitive financial information to unrestricted access. This would result in immediate and significant compliance violations, legal repercussions, and a complete breakdown of trust. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing similar situations should first thoroughly understand the data sensitivity and the applicable regulatory framework. They must then identify the specific security features within the BI tool that can enforce these requirements. The decision-making process should prioritize solutions that are automated, auditable, and adhere to the principle of least privilege. This involves 1. Data classification, understanding the sensitivity of the data being reported. 2. Regulatory mapping, identifying specific clauses in the relevant regulations that dictate data access and privacy. 3. Tool capability assessment, evaluating how the BI tool's security features can meet these regulatory demands. 4. Implementation and testing, configuring security controls and rigorously testing them to ensure they function as intended and comply with regulations. 5. Documentation and auditing, maintaining clear documentation of security configurations and ensuring audit trails are in place. Question 20. The audit findings indicate that several sensitive financial reports in IBM Cognos 10 BI are accessible to a broad range of users, including those in departments with no direct financial responsibilities. This overpermissioning poses a significant risk of unauthorized data disclosure and potential compliance violations. Which of the following approaches best addresses this audit finding and ensures appropriate data governance? Option A. Systematically review and refine user permissions based on the principle of least privilege, implementing role-based access control (RBAC) for folders, reports, and data items within Cognos. Option B. Grant all users read-only access to all financial reports and underlying data sources to ensure transparency and prevent any potential data silos. Option C. Implement a global security setting that blocks all access to financial data for all users until a comprehensive data classification project can be completed. Option D. Restrict access to all sensitive financial reports to a designated IT security team, requiring all business users to submit formal requests for report generation. The correct answer is A. Systematically review and refine user permissions based on the principle of least privilege, implementing role-based access control (RBAC) for folders, reports, and data items within Cognos. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data governance and access control within IBM Cognos 10 BI. The audit findings highlight a potential breach of data privacy and security protocols due to an overly permissive access configuration. The challenge lies in balancing the need for business users to access relevant data for reporting and analysis with the imperative to protect sensitive information and comply with data protection regulations. Mismanagement of these permissions can lead to unauthorized disclosure of confidential data, reputational damage, and regulatory penalties. Careful judgment is required to identify the root cause of the overpermissioning and implement a robust, compliant solution. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review and refinement of access permissions based on the principle of least privilege. This means granting users only the minimum level of access necessary to perform their job functions. In the context of IBM Cognos 10 BI, this translates to configuring security settings at various levels: folder, report, data item, and even row-level security if applicable. This approach ensures that sensitive data is protected from unauthorized viewing or modification, aligning with best practices for data security and regulatory compliance. By implementing role-based access control (RBAC) and regularly auditing these roles, organizations can maintain a secure and compliant reporting environment. This directly addresses the audit findings by rectifying the identified overpermissioning and establishing a framework for ongoing control. Incorrect approaches analysis. Granting all users access to all reports and data items, regardless of their role or need, is a direct violation of data security principles and likely contravenes data protection regulations. This approach creates a significant risk of unauthorized data access and disclosure, making it professionally unacceptable. Fails to implement any form of access control, leaving sensitive information exposed. Restricting access solely to the IT department and requiring them to generate all reports for business users, while seemingly secure, is operationally inefficient and hinders business agility. While it might prevent unauthorized access by business users, it creates a bottleneck and does not address the core issue of appropriate access for legitimate business needs. It also fails to leverage the self-service capabilities of a BI tool like Cognos. Implementing a blanket security policy that blocks all access to sensitive data without understanding the specific business requirements for that data is also professionally unsound. This approach, while prioritizing security, can cripple business operations by preventing legitimate users from accessing the information they need to perform their duties. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of business needs and a failure to implement granular, role-specific security. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this situation by first understanding the specific data elements flagged by the audit as being overexposed. Next, they should engage with business stakeholders to identify the legitimate reporting and analytical needs associated with this data. Based on these requirements, a role-based access control strategy should be designed and implemented within IBM Cognos 10BI. This involves defining user roles, assigning appropriate permissions to those roles for folders, reports, and data items, and then assigning users to these roles. Regular audits of these permissions are crucial to ensure continued compliance and security. This systematic, needs-driven, and principle-based approach ensures both security and operational effectiveness.